Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is a behind the scenes process video for Smash That Small Pad. It's not a tutorial, but you might get some great ideas and have some fun. I took Christmas Magic all apart and I laid it out, and I'm doing a bit more planning than normal for a couple reasons. I think some of these papers don't really go together. And when I have a pad like that, I do a bit more planning. Like, I don't think I'm going to put the animals and the ice skates together. I don't know, maybe. Also, there are a lot of cut aparts in this, and I haven't had a pad with so many that I actually like. Now, I'm not going to use It's Time to Celebrate or Forever and Always. I'm going to cover those up with different sentiments. So what I'll do is I'll stamp on something else, a Christmas stamp or something, and put it right over the top. You'll see that later. And then I'm figuring out which blue I like. I think I'm going Night of Navy. This is a little bit violet and I don't love it. And I want to have one paper that works nicely with all of these. So Stampin' Up! Night of Navy wins. I've laid some of these out, and you can see I don't like to make the same card twice ever. So on some of these squares, I've rounded the corners. I did try a Martha punch with a cute lacy edge. It was a mess because these are super thick. I have it sitting here somewhere I was going to show you. They're really, really nice, and it wouldn't go through. But this Stampin' Up! One, I tested on a scrap of the same stuff, so I could ruffle the edges of some of them, but I'm not going to be able to pull this off. That's kind of a bummer because I have a snowflake one too, but that's okay. Then I'll just start cutting. You know I love the star paper. This is adorable. I love this one. I know a lot of designers are doing papers like this. I grew up in an area where when something is dead, you put the horns on the wall. I'm not really into these papers. I usually throw them all out. So, or ephemera like this. I don't know if to you it says cute animals. It says something different to me. I don't love it. But what I'll probably do is use it like this. So it'll have a bit of a pattern. You won't know what it is, but it'll be a nice accent layer. It's just not my favorite for sure. I do like this one a lot, and then the skates. One thing that I think is weird is this paper is not bright white, and yet the ephemera is. Do you see? I'm okay with it. It's weird though. The other thing is these circles are very large. I was going to show you here. I'm using cream just so it pops and you can see it really well. They're quite large. So what I might do on some of them is, this one won't work very well, but maybe this one, I could die cut a little bit off, and then I'll have more room for a red layer behind it, and to mix things up just so all my cards don't come out the same. It's nice to have ephemera pieces in different sizes, and they haven't really done that here. That's okay. They're gorgeous. I could do some of that with the squares too. And like these, well, obviously this one will be different because I'm not going to throw this away, you know, but I'm going to trim it down. And then I'm not going to trim all the edges to start. It depends on where I put that Christmas stamp and how it turns out. And I do have two reds. I'm thinking that Stampin' Up! Cherry Cobbler will be nice. Ooh, I think I'm wrong. Look at that. Look at Real Red. Okay, I was wrong. So Night of Navy and Real Red. When I'm doing a giant batch of cards and trying to make sure I use everything, I've talked about this before, but I know a lot of you are new here. I try to use the same cardstock so that I can mix and match. Like I might sit down and watch TV and die cut red circles. This guy feels more blue. How about this one? Die cut a red circle for this one, and then I'd have them all ready to go, and I can mix and match them on any papers. If I do each one individually, they might not mix and match as well later. You end up with different reds or different greens. Maybe you like that. Maybe you have a ton of scraps. I don't have red scraps. I think it's because I do 4th of July so much. I mean, I have an envelope somewhere, but it is tiny. In fact, maybe I'll dig it out, see if I could use some of them up. Now, you know I have a lot of blue, and I might look through my scraps a little bit for that, but this has to be a pretty big scrap to layer with that. I also have my snow marker out because I have an idea for this guy. I'm not sure what else I'm going to do yet. I think we need some glitter, don't we? I mean, we probably need to go nuts with the glitter. I don't even know where I keep that at this point. I shuffle it around all year round and never use it. Maybe crystal stickles would be good here. I don't know what we'd put glossy accents on. I don't really want to accent the blade. Maybe the eye or something. So we'll get some stuff out. In the end, the cards won't look the same. And I will share with you. I'm not convinced if there's going to be a process video yet. Sort of depends on what I do with my day. This is the same day, and I've gone through my collection and looked for tiny holiday sentiments. And I'm looking for things that I can use for work or for people who I don't know their religious beliefs. The selection was pretty slim pickings because these embellishments were so big. So I found winter wishes and warm wishes, and I stamped a bunch of those out. And some I put on paper, and some I thought, well, I can stamp them right on there and it'll work. And then I was experimenting with die cutting the shapes for those. And my mats for my big die cutter are pretty rough. I need to look in the drawer and see if I have new ones or what's going on with that. The big circles had to be done on my big die cutter. And then I used glue to put those together. I like to use wet glue sometimes because then if you don't get it perfectly straight, you have, that extra second to jiggle it. I really loved those ice skates. Later on, I put some shimmer on the blades and stuff. I don't know if that shows. And here, these were scraps that I used. That's why there are these long, skinny strips. They were in the jar on the counter, and I found some scraps. And then look, I even turned it into a little flag, and I think I did okay. I feel like Christy Marcotte would have been proud of me, right? And I'm just trying to make it work space-wise. So I'm trimming the end of the flag and then going, okay, that'll work. And then I stick it under and put that underneath it. When I can't figure out exactly how I want things, I layer them in the hardest order. So if I had put the flag down first, maybe there wouldn't be room for the big ice skates. But if you put the ice skates first, you could jiggle the flag or trim it more and it would work. I'm just going to set these aside. I'm not going to show you mounting them on the card bases usually because you'll see that in the video. Share video, you saw the finished cards. And here we go, and I'm still just using the Stampin' Up! Cardstock and cruising along. And I know that I am messy, and some of you look at my workspace and you just die, but sometimes that's how I get my inspiration. There's a scrap sitting there or there's something going on, and I find that if I put things away, I forget to use them or I just can't find them anymore. This ribbon had been sitting out because Christmas was spread all over, and I think I used some of it for tags, but then I wanted to use some of it for this. I think one of you sent that to me. It's a really cute ribbon. I don't know where it came from. I don't know anything about its origins. But it is nice to mix in some textiles or some glitter, different things, especially maybe you're a brand new crafter and you have one paper collection and you want to make cards for people and you don't want them to be all the same. I'm not kidding you, I really do this. I save ribbons from soap packages or a blanket you got for the holidays or those weird strings that are in your shirt like you're supposed to hang them on a hanger. That is all perfectly good ribbon and can be used for anything. And my friend Noni saves me ribbons like that too because she doesn't really use them on cards, and because I make journals and all kinds of things, I use a variety of sizes of ribbon. Nothing is trash. In case you're not familiar with this, what I'm doing is I'm chopping up bits to put behind it because that ribbon, especially depending on the thickness of your ribbon, that ribbon has a really nice stitched edge that's kind of thick. So I'm raising up the red circle because otherwise it would have like a speed bump in the middle where it goes over that ribbon. And again, I'm using my scrap jar and I'm using I got it free at a garage sale. It was a paper sample book. And so I'm using like the raspberry color or whatever's closest to real red, because I don't want to use real red back there. I might use it for something else, but I don't want to use purple just in case I get a little bit off. Those are my weird tricks, and you might have your own weird tricks. I try to use, if I'm layering behind I might not use the same paper, but something in the same color family. I die cut like a million stars out of all of the scraps that went around those circles. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think most of those are still in a jar in the craft room right now. And it is January and these cards are long gone. I die cut them all, but I didn't actually use them on these cards, which I think is okay. If you saw the small pad video, you know that I still have some leftovers, so I can use those next time. And I did bring in the wood embellishments because those don't mail well. If you've mailed them to your friends, don't worry about it. But if you didn't put the hand-stamped stamp on them, they may have been broken when they got there. But they're so cute and they're wonderful to give out in person. And when the pandemic hit, we stopped using so many of those chunky embellishments because we weren't giving cards out in person. So I don't know about your stash, but I have a lot of things like that. And I love them. So I did use them here. And then this reminded me also that I have a box of wood like this somewhere in my craft room that has other shapes. So I want to find that and use that in some of my spring cards. This is iridescent paper that I bought in a pack at Michael's last year, I think. When you buy one of those specialty packs at Michael's, it's a real commitment. You know, if you buy them in an actual like scrapbooking store, which many of you don't have, sorry, you get to buy 2 or 3 sheets and you can pick the color. Before you buy a pack at Michael's, be sure it's a neutral that you will use a lot. I have a copper colored one I've been trying to use up for 3 years. It's gorgeous, but let me tell you, I'm tired of it. The iridescent is more versatile, but still, I didn't use it at all in the fall. It didn't really go for that. Did you see? In this video, I actually did that Christy Marcotte trick where she takes that circle out of the back and reuses it. And it was especially helpful in this video because there were so many of these circle embellishments. So I needed a circle die cut of that same red. And so I just die cut it out and then I'd fill the hole in with pink because what am I going to do with pink paper? Then I had that red for the front. Sometimes I don't do that because I'm lazy or I forget. I have a tendency to assembly line 20 card bases and then realize I should have die cut out of them. But it works out pretty good. If you're going to use circles on your cards anyway, I highly recommend doing that. You just have to change your sequence a little because I usually glue my layers together and then think of it. Doesn't work very well. Okay, I was stopping for a minute to hear if you guys could hear Zeus snoring, but I don't think you can. My cute little man. If you don't know about Zeus, check out December 24th, December 25th. There should be a video all about the little man. So here I'm experimenting because I really liked the die cut snowflakes and I was proud that I finally found my snowflake die. I wanted to use the wood ones too, but again, I was getting into that wobbliness of having the different layers underneath. I'm also having a little trouble with my glue dots. I think I have the removable kind and I didn't put them all back in the packages. It's not all that I had hoped. In a perfect world for glue dots, I like to have the tiny and I think the one called medium or large. Right now, for some reason, I have 2 packs of big ones, so I had to kind of shove it behind the middle of the snowflake so it didn't show. And the reason I wanted a glue dot on that is because they hold, as long as they're the permanent ones, and it helped with that lip because I had the 2 layers of cardstock and I needed to get the snowflake up over it. So sometimes I choose my adhesive based on the thickness I'm looking for. I do think art glitter glue or Barely Arts would hold those wood chips. I just don't have that kind of patience. Now we're circling back to get some sentiments and I have them stamped out and I'm just figuring out which of my circle dies will work. I think this is the Hero Arts Infinity circles that I have. And they're just great to have so many and they're expensive, but you just buy them all at once and then you have them. Love them. Then I've skipped the parts where I dink around, tidy up, or glue things on the inside. So you won't see those. Then I'm stamping out some winter wishes and setting those aside. And then I found the warm wishes, just kind of working with them. This is the one that I punched before and need to fix it because the Martha Stewart punch didn't work on it. You know, I just leave these things sitting on the counter, and then when I think about it, I go for them. I went off the screen a bunch, but I punched it. Then I used my bone folder to smooth it out because it was super rough. And I also patched up the end scallops with a pair of scissors. Don't be afraid to do that if it doesn't work out quite right. Then the warm wishes was on such small paper that it didn't cover that sentiment. So I layered it on a piece of red. And then I'm just using that border punch on the other side too. Somehow I just got it in my head that I was going to use that item. I had damaged it with the punch, and then I just decided I was going to use it. I don't know if that happens to you. I just work my way through these random things, and sometimes, especially in Smash or Stash or other things, there's just something that I just decide I'm going to use, and I don't know. It happens. Here, look, I took the circle out of the middle for a reason, right? So I'm not wasting that piece of paper. If you're going to make a bunch of cards, that is really tricky. And of course, it doesn't have to be circles. It could be, I don't know, trapezoids. Look at this. I should have made this card too. The snowflakes were a little crowded, but I should have made that work. I could have done two like this. I had a bunch of those. I don't know why I didn't circle back. Sometimes when I edit my videos or watch the process, I'm like, oh, that was better. I liked it. Here I'm using foam mount. I have had this roll of foam mount a date with my craft room, who is Tasha, who doesn't make videos anymore because she has the cutest little boy. We went shopping. It had to be 4 years ago now, something like that. I bought this roll of stuff. So when you see these giant rolls, don't necessarily think that you need one. The other thing to keep in mind is adhesives and some of those supplies do not age well. And when I was taking the backing off, I thought, maybe this is getting a little old now because I don't remember it being so troublesome. So keep that in mind when you see on YouTube that we have these giant amounts of supplies. That's why I've been a little careful about not picking up some adhesive bundles or other amazing deals because I have things I need to use. I had to edit this out. It took me so long, and I used tweezers and paper and I couldn't get a hold of them. And it didn't used to be like that. So just keep that in mind. Buying in bulk is great for paper. Paper doesn't go bad, right? As long as you store it properly. With my scissors, I was just fixing one of those scallops. But adhesives and some of your other things do. Some of the really old embellishments that people gift me or that I pick up at yard sales, the embellishments and the adhesives have completely separated, which maybe that's fine because you didn't want foam mount. Okay, this is an example of don't do things how I do it. Put the glue on the paper where you want it. There you go. And then put the item on it. If you try and put the glue on the item loose in your hand, it does not work. That is a Silhouette pickup stick. There's another brand that makes them. I love them. Mine is ancient and damaged, and I was going to ask Santa for a new one, and then I forgot to tell Santa, so maybe I'll just tell Amazon. I have one of those fancy nail manicure, whatever we call them, embellishment wands, but I love the pickup stick. I don't know. Old school. I like the pokey tool on the end. I think it's a little better for cleaning up die cuts than the metal thing because it doesn't damage, and I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not a good die cutter. Here, I'm picking up strips off the counter. Look at that strip. I'm going to use it, and it's cute. I always tell you, don't throw things away, right? And wait till the very end. At the end, if you want and you're sick of it, throw it away. But along the way, keep it. I went off the edge a bunch, so I just took that all out. I think I forgot I was completely zoomed in. Sometimes I'm talking to Mr. Crafting and Relaxing and singing with the music. I wasn't really watching Christmas movies. Last year, I watched a lot of Christmas movies while I crafted. I don't have a TV in my craft room, but I have an iPad. This is an example. I'm going to zoom out and you're going to get to see it, but I'm struggling because the animals are so cute and the embellishment is so big, and how do you work through that? Then I got brave and just stamped right on it. If you stamp and it doesn't work, you can always put an embellishment or a circle or something over it, right? Glitter, I do Embossing powders the same way. I'll write, instead of glitter, I'll write gold or silver. I only have one jar of loose silver glitter. Like, this is not silver. It's translucent. I don't know what we call that. Stampin' Up! From 100 years ago. And I just put it on the edge of the trees, and I was trying to get some interest. Maybe I should have done more. And then I just put it back in the jar. Some people use coffee filters or fancy gadgets. I don't need fancy gadgets. And I tried coffee filters when I saw other people doing it. And I went back to my 20-year-old piece of paper trick. Oh, isn't that the cutest little stamp? It almost fit in there. The glitter paper, I'll let it sit around for the holiday season, then I'll put it in the trash. The embossing paper ones, I just put them in the drawer next to the stamps. I don't know why I keep them in there. They're not by the embossing powders. I moved the embossing powders like 2 years ago. So I had all these snowflakes that I die cut. I don't know. Maybe you think blue snowflakes are weird, but they make me happy. And I like contrast, so they couldn't be white. They could have been iridescent, but these were out of the scraps that went around all those embellishments and stuff. I didn't do a bunch of die cutting out of the paper itself. It would have been trash otherwise. So what I did was, around each one of those circles, I went in and cut one large snowflake while I was watching TV. So you didn't see any of the die cutting for that reason. Well, the random die cutting, you saw the circles. Okay, now I'm figuring out, how do I want to layer that? How should it look? And I can never remember which circle is which. That's why you see me. I am a fiddler. My friend Katie, who is a quilter, calls it auditioning, where you lay out the fabrics and you lay the things out. See, look, I'm using the pink circle again. The pink paper is from that same estate sale where I bought all that yellow paper, so don't worry. There's no shortage of pink. But she calls it auditioning, and we try things and lay them down. Some of you may be able to see the colors and how they're going to look together. I cannot see that. I can't pick a paint for a wall and see how it's going to look beforehand. I can't figure out how the furniture is going to look once it's arranged. I have to do it. I have to see it. So I lay the stuff down and pick it up all the time. When you watch tutorial videos, especially where somebody's making two of the same card and they already made one off camera or whatever, they don't do that. They just go, go, go. Oh, paintbrushes. Even if you're not a mixed media person, paintbrushes are great to have a clean, dry paintbrush around to manage stray glitter, stray embossing powders. It's a little bit staticky to the paper. And so if you come in with the paintbrush, it kind of uses that static and attaches to the paintbrush. Then you can wipe it on, I don't know, your clothes. That's what I always do. Try and remember to put the paintbrush away fairly clean, though, because if you leave that glitter on there and next time you're trying an embossing powder, it might not be glitter season. I think there is a season for glitter. Like, I don't use glitter a lot all the rest of the year. That's cute, isn't it? And that red and that other one, those were just trash scraps that were sitting on the counter. And they inspired me. I really like how this card turned out. I think that stripe breaks up the space really nicely. I would also like you to notice that I'm demonstrating how to do the glue and the pickup stick better. Put the glue on the card. And in that instance, I don't know why I glued the stars first. I think I just really liked where they are. Sometimes if you get a layout just perfect, you can take a picture of it with your phone or whatever, or start gluing it together in like a backwards sequence to help you get it exactly how it is. Now we're coming back to this one that I had troubles with and couldn't figure out how to put together. Sometimes I don't make a card all the way through either, which might be a little frustrating if you're used to tutorials, but that's just not really how I craft. Something has to dry or I get sidetracked by something. Okay, I edited this a whole bunch whenever I used stickles because my bottles of stickles are really old and they just were giving me troubles. You would have had to wait a long time. Okay, so I set that card aside because I know me and stickles. So I put it on a completely different counter. Then we're coming back. There's a lot of time breaks in this. Remember, this is many days. And then I think it was Christy Marcotte did a card like this. There was also a sheet load a couple months ago where you took a section and cut it in half. But I just loved the asymmetrical sections that Christy had on her card. I think this technique is especially handy when you have two papers that you really want to show. Very often I do tiny borders, and I didn't want to cover up all that foliage. This would have been a really good card to do early on when I was using the star paper as a background too, especially when you have a pattern on your background paper that's in rows and you're trying to do really narrow borders. I just don't like how that looks usually, because one side usually doesn't have the pattern. But look how cute that is. And both of the papers show. You get to see the reindeer and the gorgeous foliage. So I think that is a really neat layout for multiple beautiful things on a card instead of one gorgeous paper or one focal point. So then I'm going to try and repeat it with ice skates. And these were just random scraps of paper that were sitting there. So I didn't have any prior thought to, are they a good setup? Is this a good idea? I did have to go back afterwards and add glue to these cards because, sorry, I didn't zoom out more. The way I added the ATG, there were floppy edges because I hadn't done this and I was experimenting with where do you glue and how do you cut, and I don't know that I actually paid attention during Christy's video on how she made the card, but I was super excited about it. And I sometimes just take a quick screenshot of something to remind me to do it. Otherwise, I walk away from it and forget. But look how cute that turned out. Now, I'm going to try one more with the ice skates. And this one gave me some trouble, but I'll show you it turns out fine. If you like this idea, just take the paper and fiddle with it and it'll all turn out fine. Many people probably have formulas and plans and cut this size, and I just don't work that way. And I don't have, see, my top border is bigger because I figure, hey, no problem, I'll cut it off later. But then I used a little bit of that border when I put the card together. There you go, right there. So on that top right, see where there's a little nick in the ice skate paper. I'm sure some people actually plan the cards they're going to make. Oh, I'm going to have 12 reindeer cards, and I'm going to have 3 ice skate cards, and I'm going to die cut 6 circles before I start. No, I'm not going to do that. Those snowmen, I can't remember if I ever actually made a card, but my plan was the snowman would cover the sentiment that said something like, it's time to celebrate, on one of those square cards. And it was super cute. I don't know if I ever actually glued one together. Look, I do this all the time. I took the whole paper pad apart and missed one. So go through your paper pad all the way. Then I'm experimenting with the sentiments that came in the collection, because if they had made those a little bigger, you could use those to cover up the sentiments I didn't like on the other ones, and it would be like interchangeable. They weren't big enough. I gave up. Remember earlier when I said, sometimes I just get it in my brain that I'm going to use something. This pale blue vellum with white polka dots was sitting on the counter way off to the left. It might have been in the video when I very first filmed at the beginning and said, I'm going to start this. And I just had it in my mind that we were going to use this paper. Cutting into a specialty piece of paper, sometimes by doing that, you get inspired and you use the rest of it. And honestly, I love to buy specialty paper, collect it, cute vellums, mirror paper, not so much glitter paper, cool textures. I forget to use it. So I was just determined. Then I had one piece of this paper left. I picked up my scoreboard and used the Sharpie marks that I have on my little yellow thing, which fortunately were an A2 size. I like to put Sharpie marks for the things I make the most. I just wasn't totally sure when I did it if an A2 was right. So all I'm going to do, oh, there we go. It works. Okay. Isn't that the cutest envelope ever? I have lots of envelope videos. If you want, I'll try and link or leave me a comment and I'll find you some actual tutorials on how to make envelopes. I thought that was so cute. And then I looked all around. That was the last whole piece of paper of that. The only other ones I had left were directional. You don't want to make, probably, I mean, you could, but you don't really want to make an envelope with directional paper, because on one side, your reindeer would be upside down or your ice skates would be upside down. I think ice skates would be less weird than reindeer. This is it. There's no more footage. I looked around. We're getting down to the end. I made a lot of cards with this, but I don't have a lot of video, it seems. So I hope you saw the card you wanted to see and that this was fun for you. When it came down to it, the reindeer papers were hard for me to use. I think one of my favorites with the reindeer is this one right here. I really like how it turned out. When I go to cut a piece of paper and I spin it 3 times and you're like, what is that crazy lady doing? Sometimes I'm avoiding a bent edge. In this case, the paper was different in different sections, and I really wanted those big white puffs. I don't know what that is. Is it baby's breath? I doubt it. I don't know. But anyway, I wanted those kind of on the left as an anchor. That's really cute and so easy. And these small dies came in the set with the stars. I think it was a memento set. So I had peace, and then I had one that said joy. And then this week, it doesn't help me because I think I'm done, but I picked up a really cute Season's Greetings, very small for next year. And it's a brand that usually doesn't make me grumpy, so I don't think it'll be fiddly. This peace die was very fine, but still worked very nice. Look how cute it is on here. I just love it. That's like the simplest one and definitely one of my favorites. Did you have a favorite card? Did you have a favorite technique? Something that you liked in here? Leave me a comment. Let me know. I think the next video you're going to see after this is probably Smash Our Stash. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.